riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back. We're at the Crappie compound in Como, Mississippi for the B&M, the cornfield fishing gear, crappie magnet, big giveaway that they did back at Grizzly Jig, which is a really cool deal. A phenomenal place here that Mr. Les Smith has here. And I got two special guests with me today, and I'm going to let them do a little introduction for themselves and tell us where you're from and what you do.
I'm Mark from Cornfield Fishing Gear. We're out of Gilbertsville, Kentucky, which is just outside of Paducah, right out on Kentucky Lake. We manufacture the mounts and just about everything we need to put something on a boat.
Absolutely. Just about and everything you need to put on a boat.
John Harrison from North Louisiana, just tournament crappie fishing. Love to crappie fish, been crappie fishing all my life.
Now, we got both of these guys here with me today, and John just got a boat about to arrive any day now, and you can put pretty much everything you might need for a new boat, accessory-wise.
Yeah, we can do everything. So John's going to talk about how he's setting his boat up for his style of fishing.
Yeah.
But then we're going to talk about what John's got going on, how we're going to be able to fix that up on this brand new Nitro to get what he needs. But John's helping me for quite some time now. He's a really good guy. He's one of our pro staff members. And we talk about a lot of different things. And we want to talk about today kind of breaking it down to a guy that's maybe it's his
brand
first
new,
boat or really kind of just getting into any kind of fishing. I mean, it's not just about crappie fishing. We can do stuff for, across the board, cat fishing.
Right.
Big boats down south.
Brim fishing, get the brim fishing and 360. I mean, that's pretty handy on that.
Well,
yeah.
Every fishing market that there is that I know of, you're using electronics. And I know you have a ton of mounts for different applications with that.
The new we talked about earlier. Brad and I fished a little bit this morning, so we talked quite about a few
speaking of
things.
that, how many did y'all catch?
A bunch, man.
Too many to count. We had a blast.
Yeah, we had fun. It was fun, real fun,
Uh-huh.
We were talking about the offshore boats and the new transducer that Garmin has that sees farther and deeper, and guys in saltwater are starting to catch on now. We've laughed all the time. John Harrison and I talked about it, and you and I. The crappie fishermen seem to be the first guys that picked up on all this new electronics, 6 years ago now, and all the rest of them are kind of following suit now because it is the real deal.
Yeah.
It does work. It does make a difference, and John can give you experiences on live scoping. And like what we proved today, don't always have live scope,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
Old school still works.
Yeah.
I come down there and fish with Mr. Les, every summer and mapping. That's about all we use, just running contour lines, mapping. We very seldom use a live scope, and if it is, it's just to see where they are in the water column. I mean,
and Mr. Les himself is a good example. He started out with a mapping unit. That's all he had was all he needed for mapping because he's doing his power trolling. And we set him up with a unit set him up with a mount with one unit on top of it, and then he decided he was going to get a live scope. He's using it to look at his baits. So we were able just to add on to what he had, and we make an add-on kit that fits all of our mounts. We can go from 1 unit to 2 units.
And that's the thing. Somebody getting into this starting out, may have just one graft on their boat. you make models that it'll handle just one graft, but yet you can buy a kit to add on if you want to go with a double mount later on.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
so you're not having to buy another whole mount. You
Right.
can just buy a kit.
That was my goal in the beginning, is to be able to add on to them. And we got a few products that look like other ones, but they don't interchange. I mean, it's the same pretty much design, but for one reason or they don't. But pretty much the telescoping mounts, the single and mounts, we can turn all those from.
Let's go through like just some of the mounts that you're offering now.
Well, you know, when we first started it, gee whiz, 8-9 years ago now.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted a solid mount, had to have her on a solid mount. So we built something that we felt like was a solid mount, and I went with 1/2-inch bolts and tried to overkill things. And then everybody only needed to put 2 units on. So now we had to figure out how to make them into
That was
2
me.
units. And then we started going from 9 and 10-inch grafts to 12-inch grafts to 16-inch grafts.
17-inch.
17-inch grafts. Now there's 22-inch grafts and 24-inch grafts. And we're working on one for that standalone TV
Yeah.
that connects to your unit, and we're building a graft for that or a mount for that graft right now. So it's basically its own deal. But yeah, we just
He makes a cool mount for the 16 and 17. It encases it. 17 doesn't come with a gimbal,
Right.
and so they're designed to go in the console. But Mark makes a frame that it fits in. It's really stout, and I think he started making them for the 16. Right, I'm gonna put one of those.
yeah we're going to
my
do
boat.
16, 17, 22, and 24. We can fit all those.
Good Lord. And, somebody listening, you might say, why do you need 2 grafts? And it depends on the application. I know for me, pre-live sonar, I use 2 grafts because I could scan out to the right side of the boat, scan out to the left side of the boat, and then even have another unit to show me mapping. It's all about getting the details. So just like running the boat, there's a lot of guys that run different brands as far as electronics to see different mapping.
Right, I do.
And then you also, as far as like looking at side imaging and down imaging, and then also mapping, it gives you endless ways to utilize your equipment, especially once you put another unit on, say, the front of your boat. You've got live scope, but for me, mapping is just about as critical because I can see the waypoints I created. It shows me the depth changes,
Yeah, contour lines.
contour lines, and like we've discussed in previous podcasts, is mapping is a really big key when it comes to crappie fishing. So go ahead and, in my mind, I couldn't fish without having 2 units.
Right, me too. Once you do it, you can't fish
yeah.
without it.
Why such a big unit? Well, split the screen, and you got one
right.
unit can do 2 things: your side image, or your down image, or your mapping, or
Well,
whatever.
you can do all multiple things. You can split your forward-facing sonar screen with your mapping, and you still have perspective on another scope. And then if you have somebody fishing with you, you have 2 scopes in the boat, and that brings up some more stuff Mark makes. The live sweep. And also the cable-driven.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Talk about that because I'm gonna put that one on my boat.
Yeah.
And that way,
we started out when I remember when it first came out. Remember the video that they put out on the internet, Garmin did, and it showed the guy swimming.
Oh, yeah.
And it showed the shark, and everybody's like, oh. And I was talking to one of my guys there that sold units and stuff, and nobody sold Garmin. Garmin wasn't that big a deal.
Right.
All they had was the others. And I said, man, did you see that thing? Oh, yeah, that ain't near as good as they say it is. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then some.
So luckily, I already had what we called the cable saver that we use for down image and side image transducers. We add to the Tarovas and the Alteras and the XI5s and some of those that's a little bit more difficult to connect your wiring to. So we were able to take that technology and beef it up, make it bigger, and be able to do live scope. So we put the live scope transducer on the trolling motor. Still, as far as I know, there's a lot of homemade things out there, but ours is the best setup that you can buy for Tarova, Altera, XI5, and they put them on a lot of different ones. A lot of guys they still put them on the Ultra-X and all this.
Is there one particular trolling motor that you don't have a mount like that?
There's a guy, Rodan's down in Florida. We worked with them a little bit, but they've got different shaft sizes and stuff. And they're a small company. They build a really nice piece of equipment. I guess they were supposedly the forefront of spot lock and all this and that, but they were a small company, and they've got shaft changes because I think they got an 8-foot one or something, an 8-foot shaft and all. Because they're doing them offshore boats,
right?
The big, and they're so busy. I have to get a hold of them and get a serial number and all this and that, and we just don't make very many of them. It's too hard to fit them. I mean, I can, but the Terova and the Altera, son, I wish I knew how many we made.
Well, that's a good thing. I know one of the things that I get a lot of people on the boat, and they always ask, should I put my live scope transducer on a pole or on the shaft?
That's a question you get many times a week. I get the same thing. And,
I always ask them, well, what style fishing are you planning on doing?
Exactly, and that makes all the difference.
And like me in the summertime right now, we're casting the brush piles. We're sitting back away from the fish and actually casting to them, not to spook them and such. But if you're planning to stay in pretty much a stationary spot and fishing, I would suggest one of your live sweep, or the new one that you've got coming out.
Yeah. So we got the live sweep mounts to the trolling motor so that it'll stow and deploy with the trolling motor. But if you're in spot lock like you're talking about, you can steer it individually. I'm proud to say we were the first ones. 2019, we brought that out at the Crappie Expo. We've been building it since then. It's got a foot pedal. You can push the foot pedal to make it turn left or right, or a key fob to make it turn so it's wireless.
So pretty much they can take that, put it on their trolling motor, hit spot lock, get it on your target, whatever you're fishing, and leave it there. That way you can, the trolling motor actually fight and keep you in that spot. And
then you
fish.
can make minor adjustments with the live sweep to stay looking at your target as the boat's moving around in the wind.
If you pull up on that bed or stake pile or whatever it is, brush pile, and you point that boat in the wind, hit that spot lock, it's not gonna move, right?
Yeah.
So then you can work strictly off that live scope to catch your fish.
Then there's people that wanted to do the hand operated scope.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I was a little hard headed on that. I didn't think we always vertical jigged in Kentucky Lake 2 poles.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't want to be moving that thing around my hand while I'm trying to fish. Well, it's not about what I think I'm right on. We had a lot of customers that needed something like that, so we set out to build one. And I wanted to make sure that when we built ours, complaints I'd heard was things getting broken. And I know,
oh yeah,
if it's hanging over the side of the boat, I'm going to tear it off at some point. So I wanted to make sure everything we built stayed inside the boat when you weren't using it. So we worked on all that. And then we had a mount that we were buying, and you could put this in there and it'd slide out over the side of the boat and put it in the water and deploy it by hand. And then you'd be able to turn the knob, the handle and turn your live scope however you want. Well, then COVID hit and we couldn't get it anymore.
Right.
So then I just sat down and we designed one, and it's a little bit overkill and it's pretty heavy duty, but now we build all of it in-house ourselves. It got so bad in COVID we couldn't get a knob, so we had to start making our own knobs. So we're trying to make all that stuff. So now you can put it on the trolling motor. That's how John's running, because he's chasing big fish in open water. He needs that thing looking in the direction that he's got the trolling motor going in so he can run it down. So that's, if you're really good on the trolling motor and you're chasing fish in open water, it really ought to be on the trolling motor.
Yeah, well, the one that's got the knob, it turns now.
Yeah.
I can still use mine on my trolling motor. Or I can do just what you were talking about with a live sweep. I can also fish brush piles in the wind with it. But if I'm by myself, I like to run perspective on my other scope a lot of times. So I can just leave it pointed forward and put it in perspective mode and use it that way. So there's you have multiple options with
So we keep building on and trying to have everything so that we're a one-stop shop for a mount to put your unit on, depending on what you want. We'll talk about different styles of mounts here in a second. So now you can put it on the trolling motor shaft, like that's how John's using it. You can put it on a live sweep so that it's still on the trolling motor and goes in and out of the water when you put the trolling motor in, but it's independently operated from the trolling motor. Or you can put it on the hand-controlled rod that's a pole.
Yeah.
I think we call it hand sweep or something, or hand pole or something. I get in trouble for not calling it the right names. So you can run it by hand over the side of the boat, and we got different mounts. The base mount bolts to the deck, and there's got guys that's got 2 of them. They put one on either side of the boat. Depending on what they're doing, they can just pick that unit up and put it on the other side of the boat, and that way it's real quick and easy for them. And then this latest one that John's talked about here, I've been fooling with this thing literally for 2 years in spare time and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted a unit that I could turn, but I wanted it on the trolling motor.
Yeah.
But I didn't want a motor on it, and I didn't want, you can't really reach for it when you got stuff on it. I didn't want a big rod that you're trying to deal with and all this and that. So it's funny, was that grizzly jig again, the mecca of all, and I got talking to a guy that was a customer, and he turned me on to a company that he dealt with that made flexible cables. And everything I found, a speedometer cable or this and that, they weren't long enough, they weren't this, there was always something wrong with them. And he turned me on to this company, and they are custom making what we want. We've done a lot of prototyping, almost a year of playing with different sizes and different lengths and different housings and different everything. And we settled on one. It was all stainless steel and everything, and then the stainless market went stupid. And it was like, it jumped almost double in price overnight. So we couldn't do that. That just put us way out of the price point. So they went back and used a steel cable and the brass dip in it so that it won't rust. I wanted something that didn't want to, you know how a throttle cable or a choke cable will rust up, then so we didn't want that. So we got that. So now, dual purpose, now you can mount it on the trolling motor with the same brackets that we'd use for the live sweep. And then it has this flexible cable that comes up, and we built a bracket, a plate that mounts to our mount underneath your gimbal mount. So right next to your unit, you have a knob, and you can turn this knob and look at your unit. And we all know, and John will tell you, he's tournament fishing and really good at it. When you get that beam on that piece of structure, it's like a light comes on, right? When you're dead in the middle of that beam and you got it perfectly on.
Centered up.
So now with this, you're going to be able to finely tune it by turning this knob. And it's not going to be for chasing fish. I think it'd be really difficult to use for that.
It's going to be really good for fishing brush piles.
Brush piles, yeah. If you're spot locking and brush piles and stuff like that.
Very still productive way to catch fish.
There's a lot of people that that do it that way, and it's going to work really good. You can tune that thing in. And another application is, so you're searching, so you're looking for some stuff. Well, you have your transducer on your trolling motor, because once you find that fish, you're going to hunt it down, because that's the way it is right now.
Yeah.
But what if you're cruising along a bank or cruising along somewhere and you're searching? You can't be turning your trolling motor because your boat's going to be going all wild on you. So we're building another deal that's going to go up, and you'll be able to use the hand operated, the over the side mount we got, put this unit in that, and turn it while you're sitting in the driver's seat.
Sound like the options are pretty much.
Oh, they're endless. And most of Mark's stuff is plug and play or interchangeable. A lot of stuff works with other things, and it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat to get tested out first.
Oh, absolutely.
But I tear up a lot of stuff too.
So your new nitro for your tournament setup, what are you thinking about? What?
Oh, I'm definitely going with that short telescoping mount, because the units are so big now, you're having trouble seeing. That's why we had the fold down mount. And I love the fold down mount. Don't get me wrong. But you can't see over them. So I want it as low as possible to the deck. But when I'm fishing, I lean against a butt seat, and I want that unit right in front of me, because I'm zooming out, zooming in all the time, constantly. I don't want to have to bend over. I'm getting old, man. It takes a toll on me. So I want to be able to raise that unit up. So that's the unit I want to go with. I'm going to go with a bridge and the short telescoping mount on the front. Sure.
That'll be everything set up on the front.
Right.
And then
you might make me a little cup holder on the side.
Yeah, we got cup holders that go on the side. We got tool holders that go on the side. We even got, and while we're on talking about the mounts and stuff, we're going to build our own aluminum knobs. We got into building aluminum knobs now. We got that figured out pretty good. We're going to take and build an aluminum knob that'll go on for where your units are. So the knobs on either side, you can get the fancy aluminum shined up.
Yeah, I'm going to put the 16 inside that big heavy duty case you built for it, now the frame. With that'll make a big difference. That thing makes it rock solid. For those big units, that makes it rock solid.
Yeah, and we can take the big units he's talking about, the 16, 17, 22, 24, and mount that right on top of our other mounts,
Wow.
But if it's a single mount and you're putting this single unit on it, I would suggest you buy another arm. So that a single mount only has one arm on it. Double mount has two. I just want to keep it from having any side to side. And if you're going to put this big unit on it, I'd put a second arm on it. But you can buy all those pieces and parts right on the web page.
Yeah.
So
I know, and we kind of touched on it, I think, in the beginning, but we're talking about rigging out a new boat, some of the accessories that you might need to do that. And I know I snapped one in the beginning when I had an Ultrex on my boat was the cable saver. What's that product?
Well, it came about because back before all this, we had down image and side image. And I added that to an XI5 trolling motor that I had on my old Ranger boat way back then. And I pulled her up out to stow it and cut the cable. Thank goodness back then that transducer was like 125 or 40 bucks.
Right.
So, I had to eat that, buy that. And then I'm being careful because I don't want to cut another cable, and I'll be danged if I didn't do it again. So then I'm sitting back thinking, man, there's got to be a better way than this. And me and a friend of mine was sitting there looking at it and trying to figure out, because it's got to turn with the trolling motor, and the trolling motor goes 360 degrees or better all the way around. So we're trying to figure all that out. And then you get into the Terrovas and the Altairs, you can't tie nothing to the shaft. I'd switched into I had a Terrova trolling motor, and it was really, the old ones used to take it all apart and run it up the groove in the shaft. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
You can't do that anymore. So I was looking at how the coiled wire goes into the head that feeds the power to it, and how when that motor turned, that coil stretched. So yeah, I did. I started with a air hose, but the problem with air hose is you can dang near see through them. They're so thin. So again, of a lot of hours on the internet searching, calling this and that, I found a company that makes hose, and they make me what I want. We have our own part number in their system, and they promised not to sell it to nobody because I helped them develop what we needed. It's a really thick walled black. It's really hard to get the cable in it, but when it's in there, I have not had one person. We've been building that for at least 5 or 6 years. Nobody has ever got a hold of me about they cut their cable. So, and it's designed so that the clamps on both ends clamp it so that. My theory was, what if you're going along and there's a branch or something under the water and your coiled hose gets caught on that? It will yank the wire out of the transducer. So I made sure we can't do that either. We try to overthink it.
I know another thing, and we rigged some boats in the past year. I rigged some on the side and for some videos as well. But, one of the products that I think you guys definitely looked at it before I thought of it, but once I saw it, I was like, yeah, we got to put that on this boat as we're installing it. And it's so simple, but it's kind of necessary. You know where I'm going already?
The wire puck.
The wire puck.
Isn't that silly?
It is.
So here's how that began. So my buddy Dean McCoy, everybody knows my buddy Big Dean up there. So Dean's he was putting live scope on his old Ranger boat. And he and I's got about the same year boat. We were within like 06 Z boats, love it to death. And they got that little narrow dash on the front. And Dean got it all done. And he had those little chrome triangle looking shell looking things. He had like 6 of them on there with wire. I'm like, man, I didn't want to say nothing, but man, that looks a little rough. I'm about clean, So I got to thinking about, and John will tell you the daggone cable end on that live sweep or live scope wire is huge.
On your networking cable,
yeah, it's huge. So you got to drill a heck of a hole just to get that through. So I measured all that up. And we come up, and I'm sitting there, and I get inspirations on things. So I'm sitting there looking at this, and I'm looking at the old GPS puck on I don't even use it anymore, but it's still on my boat,
For the Terrovas and stuff.
And I'm like, man, I just like the way it's round, and then the top of it's got a dome on it. I don't do square and sharp edges and all that stuff I can keep from it. So I thought, man, I'm going to do that. That's why I call it the wire puck, because it looks like a hockey puck.
Right,
so
it does.
Then I got looking into it. So I'm like, all right, so we got to drill. I think it's 1 1/4 inch, 1 3/8 hole, whatever that is. So you got to take a hole saw and drill that. So you drill that out. And then we found grommets, because on an aluminum boat, or even that front little aluminum piece on our Ranger boats, that could possibly chafe the wire. And anything we do, we try really hard to make sure our customer doesn't have a problem that might have been an issue that we could have fixed, you know. So we drilled the hole big enough that you can snap this grommet in there. Well, then I took plastic, and it's not printed plastic, it's the seaboard, you know, rated for sun and rated to be on a boat and all that stuff, and machined a C shape out of it with 2 holes in it. So you can drill your big hole, put your grommet in there. This fits around the grommet, so it's big enough the grommet fits. And then there's 2 1/4-inch bolts that goes in that, so you bolt the base, the C-shaped piece, to your deck or to your console or to your plate or whatever, and then the lid. So you can run all your wires and everything. And and a lot of times you got to go back and redo some things, or you're changing up.
every day.
You don't have to take it all apart. You just take 2 bolts off, take the lid off, and then you can feed all your wires in there. So you never, once you get the base on there, you never take it back off. You put the little
It definitely
cap
makes rigging
on
the
it.
boat out a
And
lot simpler.
And cleaner as well.
Clean, yeah, that's the thing. It looks really cool when it's done.
I thought that was just a product that, you know, normally you wouldn't think you might need until you're rigging a boat and you're like, man, I don't like that hole just sitting there like
And then
that. And
little products like that. So we're, you know, all the lithium batteries. You know, John come to me and he's got all these wires going to lithium battery, and some of these guys is telling me, you know, you stack them all up. They got 1 stud, and you stack them all up on there. Well, those wires get hot. They get cold. They get hot, and then that it makes it work loose. That nut shrinks and and heats up and everything, and they come loose. So we come up with this, and I just messing around one day. We come up with a terminal, so you can bolt that to your battery. And then it's got all these holes down the side of it. You can put multiple wires in or
Multiple
individual
size
wires.
wires.
well, that's
too.
the way if you come back, you need to change something out. You can just do that one
Yeah, not have to take them all
wiring off of
Yeah,
instead of
yeah,
everything.
Yeah, and then, and I've seen some others do something similar to it. But the thing, you know, again, I try to go above and beyond on everything. I don't know if every state's mandatory or it's Coast Guard. I know Illinois was pretty strict on a lot of things. It has to be covered. So we make a plastic cover out of the seaboard material again that goes over this. There's room for the wires to come out, but that big piece of aluminum and everything is not wide open because, you know, where is your battery?
In compartment.
Pretty much close to the fuel tank.
Yeah.
So we didn't want, you know, who knows, you know, we didn't
Safe
want
and
something to
sorry.
happen, get an arc across there. So, I mean, that's a rule in some states. So we went ahead and overdid that.
We kind of touched on it. You were saying some of the differences between, you know, rigging out an aluminum boat versus a fiberglass boat. What kind of things are you talking about when it comes to that?
Well, a lot of it is the screws that you're going to bolt it down with. And I catch heck a lot of times because I don't supply the mounting screws, but I don't know what you're mounting it into, and I don't know who's doing the mounting, and I don't want to be responsible for that. I'm responsible for everything that we build. We stand behind it 100%.
Yeah.
But on an aluminum boat, a lot of them, the floor is going to want to pop on you, especially if you're starting to put a bigger unit up high and all this and that. So we have a plate, like 6-inch diameter plate that you can put underneath of it, and that's what we call an underplate. So if you buy the underplate kit, we will give you the bolts because we know how this is going to be bolted. So we're going to give you nice stainless bolts that fit the base of the base mount of the mount. We got the bolts and lock nuts, all stainless, the nylon insert lock nuts and the plate. So all that's one money, and that underplate mounts to all of our different base combinations.
Yeah, the
So you
worst
can
thing's
sandwich
mounting
the-
something and letting it fall off immediately.
Yeah, or real shaky. And a lot of times on aluminum boat, they're just, some of them, depends what kind they are, who makes them, whatever, they're a little thin and they do kind of pop around a little bit. Now we make another piece, and I don't think it's on the web page yet. We've been fooling with it. It's just not something we really put a lot of. We got other things we focused on. It almost looks like a home plate. And it's got a little roof top on it, comes down, and you can bolt that down, and now you're like a foot wide with holes in it, and it's got the bolt pattern in it for all of our mounts. You can drop the mount on top of that and then put an underplate under that, and that's kind of give you a little bit more stability on an aluminum. And even on a glass boat, I tell everybody, if you can, not all of them you can, but if you can, get underneath the deck where you're mounting this mount, put an underplate on it and the bolts.
Exactly.
And I'll guarantee
all the
you
weight
can,
of these graphs nowadays.
That's heavy.
But if you mount it up like that, I guarantee you can tow the boat with it.
Right. How can somebody find some of these products that we're talking about today?
We're on cornfieldfishinggear.com, or they're welcome to call 217-304-1680.
You know, guys, take a look at all these great products that we kind of talked about today, especially you get ready to buy a boat, not sure what route you're wanting to go. These guys here, they'll help you out and walk you through the process.
Please call. If you're not sure what you want to do or how you want to go about anything, before you go buying a bunch of stuff, I don't care if it's ours or anybody's or whatever, call us up. We've got experience. Now, I got guys calling, well, I got a such and such. I don't know each boat by the model and all this and that.
Right.
But we can help you out. And we got 2 girls in the back, Paula and Miss Ashley. And believe me, I get a kick out of some people who don't want to talk to a woman. I'll tell you what.
They know what they're talking about.
They know what they're talking about.
They know about it. I'm telling you what. And if they don't, they'll come and get me, or they'll come and get Jake or somebody, and we will get them the answers that they need.
That's what I see a lot of new boat owners or new fishermen rushing out, just buying something and then regretting it.
Yep.
Right.
I've had a lot of guys call wanting to do this or that, so you can't do that. Well, I wish I'd known that before I bought it. Well,
Yeah.
you kind of got to do your research out there. We got YouTube and all this stuff, and ask questions, call up places. I mean, we'd love. And we've had people bring their boat to the shop.
Yeah.
I said, it's like buying a pair of shoes. Yeah, John brings his up all the way from Louisiana.
Wow.
I'm gonna get mine done. That's where I'm
Sit in the
taking it.
seat with test fit mounts, just like test fitting a pair of shoes. It's got to fit what you're doing, the way you're going to fish, the way you're going to sit. It's got to fit you.
That's kind of like we're talking about the live scope mounts. How you tell them what style fishing you mainly want to do. If you want to chase open water fish,
Do it
go
this
that
way,
route.
right? If you're going to do it, yep.
I mean, look at everything how you're going to do it, and even comes back if you go back and you say, all right, I've got a single mount, but I can see the benefit of adding another unit to my front deck.
We can even
Retrofit them.
We can go from a single mount, and a guy decides he wants to add something, we can go to double mount, and now we got guys wanting 3 on there. So now we got another plate you can take off, add this, put 3 units on there.
Oh yeah, that's what I ran last year. Ran 3 units up there on it. And I mean, that's a testament of it. You're running 3 big units
Oh, yeah.
up front. These things are stout. I mean, they're not some little old flimsy mount. These.
Yeah, we CNC machined everything in the shop. It's 6061, the aircraft grade billet aluminum. Then we have everything anodized so that it looks good. And every joint on our mounts is a 1/2-inch bolt. I didn't go quarter, 5/16, 3/8. We went 1/2-inch bolts.
I know another thing that the last boat that we rigged out that we put on, and is the pole holders on the side. That's something so basic, but why do people use those?
Just like the big long poles we was using this
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah,
I started out on Kentucky Lake. I like spotter rigging. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the ticket. And you got 8 of them. And if you put them in the floor, they're always wadded up. Takes a long time to get them out and put back together so you can get on the water with them. So we come
Well,
up
you know, we were all fishing the same area today, and how many live scopers did you see? Not many. Most
There was-
everybody
there was a lot of pulling.
was pulling or pushing, and you got those big long poles in the boat. You know you got to have some rod holders. You don't you're walking all over them. So yeah, the holders.
And again, I didn't want anything hanging over the side of the boat if I could keep from it. So we made these where we call them the vertical rod rack.
Yeah.
Actually, the pole lays horizontal in it, but that's vertical rod rack because it's vertically up off the deck. And you can put 4 on one side and 4 on the other. Got a bungee cord. You want to make sure you get your bungee cord all wrapped around there. They ain't coming off.
Yeah. Another thing I liked about the ones that we installed is that you can adjust that height up.
Yep.
You know,
Well,
it's
on my
more
boat,
adjustments.
On my boat, my Ranger boat, it was different from in the front to the back deck. So we drilled holes an inch apart. So you may run the front one all the way to the bottom, and you may run the back one 3 holes up. And then also, when I was coming to Mississippi, you know, I was going to Lake Washington there for quite a bit, and it's a pretty good ride for us. I like to cover my boat.
Yeah.
So I made these so I'd take the pole. They make fun of me, but I had a whole case. I broke down my rods and put them in there and zipped them all. Looked like a big old duffel bag
Oh, I
full
bet.
of fishing rods.
Like a bazooka.
Well, they break, you know.
They're
You have to be
expensive
careful,
too,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'd break them all down. It's a pain in the butt to break them all down, but I broke them all down and carried them that way. Well, then I could take that rod rack off and lay them in the floor and put my cover on and roll down the road. Then when I get where I'm going, it'd take me a little bit to get cover off, get the rod rack, put the poles together. But for me, it was worth it if I had to travel very far. But a lot of times anymore, if I'm not going to be needing the cover, I just put them in them rod holders. I've come all the way from Kentucky to Mississippi with them poles in the rod holders.
Get to
They're
Lake
They're just fine when I get here, and I put them back in there and go back to Kentucky. They're just fine when I get there.
And what I like about it is if I'm pushing or pulling, I can put those rods in my boat, or I can pop those holders out and put those rods in the shop and go right back to scoping.
Yeah, you can go do pushing or pulling the side. Man, it just ain't working today. I'm going to go do some live scoping, put them big rods on the side. You don't got to try to get them in a box. Get your scoping rod out and go try that for a little while. Well, then with scoping, again, the live scoping, man, it's drove so many products. It's amazing. So we had guys that were wanting, what size of jig head do you use? This isn't working. Now I need that. Well, instead of spending the time retying, guy might have 3 or 4 poles, 5 poles set up differently.
Oh my God, yeah.
So we done what we call the rocket launcher. Couldn't come up with that, So we got one that holds 4 poles, and a lot of guys are mounting that right next to the gunnel, and you got them 4 poles standing up.
No, even
changing
like
profiles or whatever.
Right. Even if you're pushing or pulling and you're getting your rods all ready, you can stand them up.
Yeah, that's kind of how that began. Was the guys that were spider rigging in tournaments, and say you had to move a pretty good ways, and you didn't want to put the rods in the rod holders on the side because they're a little bit more to get in there because they're made to go in there and not come out. So you're able to take 4 rods out one side, stand them up, 4 rods on the other side, stand up, run. 200 yards or half a mile, or whatever you got to do, and then quickly get them out and set them right back in.
Well, guys, as you hear, I believe Mr. Mark here has a little bit of everything covered when it comes to rigging out a crappie boat, and rigging out every boat, any fishing.
Oh yeah, we're doing catfishing like you wouldn't believe now. We're tied up with Sea Arc, and we're building some really cool stuff.
The way these mounts are.
I mean,
sell a lot to bass guys.
Cover everything.
Bass guys, walleye guys, and now we're working with some guys that's red fishing and all that down the Gulf, and we're doing some pretty cool stuff. We're working on a mount for the big glass center console boats to put the hand scope on. Those guys they ain't gonna drill no holes in their boats.
Well, we know where your heart is with the crappie fishing guys, and
that's where we started.
That's right, and we appreciate your support with the Crappie Connection through the years and everything you've done for us, and not only us, but also the crappie fishing industry. And that's a big thing that, at least in my opinion, is we got to look at companies that support us.
Yeah, we've tried to do that from day one.
Absolutely.
So it makes a good, solid relationship. When you started doing this and you come and see me, I'm like, man, that's a pretty cool concept. Nobody was really doing anything like this. And everybody needs to learn something. It's a good place to listen and learn.
Yeah, he's some great podcasts. If you're ever driving down the road, just instead of listening to the radio, put it on these podcasts and listen to them. A lot of great information.
It's a fun deal, and we can't do with everybody in the fishing industry to support us to do this as well. So this is how we keep doing podcasts, is by great sponsors like Mark and everybody at Cornfield Fishing Gear. But make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on, and catch me on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Today's Bite, discuss everything I've done the week before and some different techniques. Another really fun thing that I'm striking into this year. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on. Been waiting John Harrison to get on. We'll get him on again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
He's been in the bullseye. Mark's been on a time or two though.
Yeah, I have. Thank you very much for having me on, and appreciate it. Glad to be part of the Crappie Connection.
Yep. Till next time, guys. Brad Chappell here.
John Harrison.
Mark Ridl.
All right. Holla.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel